Um, it's difficult for me, of course, to talk about the Vietnamese personality and Vietnamese lifestyle. I have not talked to or seen the Vietnamese life in such detail. But I will speak about the Russian again as I know it to be. So, in my opinion, Russian people are all different, but maybe the characteristics that can be quite common include the hospitality. Uh, you may be sure that when you come to Russia and when you make a friend, people will invite you to their house. People will invite you to stay and share a meal together, and that meal will probably last for 3 or 4 hours. We love making feasts out of a meal. There will be tons of dishes on the table laid out for you to enjoy. And you will be invited to share tea multiple times because we love tea and the conversation that comes with it. And yeah, I think if you make a Russian friend, it's going to be a friend for a long time. Russian people are very, very hospitable. And another character trait that I find Russian maybe is the sense of humor. I think it's kind of special. It has a lot of the times it has some sarcasm, irony to it. I've had times when I relaxed and I started talking the way I normally would in Russian, but speaking in English with people of other nationalities. I realized that I was not really being understood the way I would be otherwise speaking to Russians. And my intentions to joke sometimes are not really met with the reaction that I intended to be. So yeah, I think sense of humor from Russians is great and very special, and people are very happy to joke around in this very specific manner, even with people they don't really know so well. And then I'm not sure. Maybe this kind of the next quality I will speak about. The image of this quality as being Russian comes to me from the books I read and the articles I read about Russians, but there is some certain air of fate determining people's life that Russians probably share. One of the sayings that my grandmother likes to tell me every time I go back to Russia is, it's not a very happy time for me when she says it, but she says, you belong where you were born. To me, this is a little pessimistic, but because I like to travel, maybe I'm the new generation of Russians who don't think that way. But there is this idea of fate choosing what your life is, not you choosing what your life is gonna be. And maybe related to this is the quality, rather the feeling of sadness, or I don't know, gloomy faces that some people might see in the streets, that Russians don't look so happy when you see them walking on the street. They will probably look a little very serious and never smiling in public to people they don't know. And probably, I don't know, there's this idea that people are thinking about the struggles of their daily life as they walk in the street, you know. That is probably true. I just returned from Moscow, and even though with more young people and different outlook, things are changing, but still, I could see those kinds of faces, and seeing a person smile in the street does look a little bit unusual. However, I think Russian people are very friendly, and behind that gloomy face is a great character and can be a very open and friendly person. As for the daily lifestyle, again, it's so difficult to answer in generic terms because people are different and lifestyles are different. But people in Moscow, where I know what they do, they work so hard. They work a lot. They work from early morning, from 8 or 9 o'clock on average, till 6, 7 o'clock. And commute in the city takes a long time. It's a huge city, about 12, 15 million people. And the public transport is great, but not as great as it could be. So the commute to work and back home takes a lot of time. And then people party on Friday after work. And as for the weekends, people go to some kinds of arts exhibitions, and they take walks in the parks. Moscow has so many parks. There's all kinds of things to do in the city. And you can go to restaurants, you can go to theater. People love going to the theater. And in the summer, a lot of people in Moscow go to their country houses and spend their weekends there doing barbecue, enjoying the summer days, enjoying the good weather. As I wrote in my post last Sunday, I was spending time with my family in our country house for the most part of my 2-week vacation. So that was great. Really nothing to do, just relax, enjoy great countryside. Everything is green, forest, fresh air. Wonderful. And in the winter, of course, it gets a little different because the weather in Moscow in the winter is terrible. When it's not snowing, it's probably gonna be very humid and cold, or dry and cold, and the weather changes a lot, so very unpleasant to my memory. And people still try to have something to do and go to the theater, go to the circus, go to restaurants, go to exhibitions and museums, which are so many in Moscow. And that's the lifestyle. Oh, and one of you asked me to share a video of the countryside, and I'm so sorry that I had no chance to do it because I had already left the countryside without filming it. However, I do have some pictures of forest and streets and the area around my house, so I will try to share that in the video when I make it. This is a great topic that is actually quite difficult to speak about in 2 or 3 minutes, and probably I don't even have much to say. I'm not an expert in this topic, but I think it does exist. The generation gap in Russia right now does exist in the way that young people who were born after the Soviet Union collapsed in the 90s and throughout the 21st century now were already younger than me, but they never lived in the Soviet Union times. they never lived through communism, and actually the history they learned in school is different. The way they learned about history within education system is different. These young people are directed towards the West, I would say. They love traveling. They are a lot more open-minded and ambitious. Maybe that's the right word. They are ambitious. They want to do things. They want to create things. They have a lot of ideas. And every year when I go back to Moscow, I see some new initiatives. I see some new kinds of food places open. I see change in the city. And I think a big reason why this change happens is because there are young people who need this change. Young people, maybe it's because they're young, but Russia now is only, I think, finding its face, its place after the Soviet Union collapsed, and the 90s was a really difficult time for my country, and I remember it quite well because I was a teenager at that time. Now life is different, and young people maybe are much happier, and they look happier than their parents. And they don't expect the government to give things to them. They are probably more ready to get engaged in becoming part of the choices and to be making the choices themselves. I don't know if I'm making sense in my speech, but feel free to leave some of the questions, if you have them, in the comments. I'll do my best to clarify my ideas. Or maybe you meant something else in your question. Please let me know. I will be happy to answer to the best of my ability, of course. I think that's it for today, and I have some more questions to answer, which I will do in my next video next week after research. And I have a task for you if you watched till the end of this video. As usual, in the comments below or in an audio or video message, please tell me what are the 3 things you remember the most after me answering your questions. Some facts about Russia that I shared that are most memorable, most interesting to you personally. I hope you can use your own words, tell the story, and explain why these facts are interesting to you, and which of these facts maybe you would like to tell people you meet next time when you want to tell them about Russia. I look forward to your answers, and yeah, have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.